3 months.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 13, 2015 Cumberland County Commissioners Workshop meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call this meeting to order, and at this time, I'll open up the floor to public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, Children and Youth Service Needs-Based Budget for Fiscal Year 16-17 presentation. Nicole McElwee.
Good morning, Commissioners. So I'm here to present the first of our presentations for our needs-based budget. Today I'll be presenting just the narrative piece, and it will only require Larry's signature today, who's on his way out. We'll be back in September to present the fiscal side of it. In reviewing the past fiscal year, we continue to deal with many changes within our system. If you recall last year, I was here talking about a large change to our safety assessment process that had a huge impact to our caseworkers and our report time. We were also preparing for the change to our laws. We had a significant amount of laws that were enacted in January that had an impact on us. Given these impacts, you were supportive of us hiring a supervisor and 4 caseworkers, and that really was helpful. When completing the budget, we had to project out how those new laws were going to impact us, and we projected at that time a 10 to 15% increase. Now that we are 7 months into it, we actually are seeing an average of a 36.8% increase for our intake referrals and our ongoing services. So we obviously projected a little low. I have a chart for you so you can see that.
Which isn't free.
Yeah.
Which isn't free.
Yeah, it's a definite intake increase. You can see there really isn't even any month that it started to. I think we talked to you before. Usually June and July we hit a lull and we came a little bit, but we still didn't see the lull that we're used to seeing. As you're aware, the county also made a change to our compensation plan following the Gallagher assessment. So within our COIS staff, they received a salary increase and are now exempt status. The pay increase will have an impact on our budget, but there will be a cost savings associated with the overtime since they are now exempt, so we won't have overtime costs. We are also hoping that this will help to decrease our staff turnover and increase our experience, keeping the staff here and building our experience. Another impact that we had was the grand jury report from Dauphin County.
Which wasn't pretty either.
We reviewed that in our Human Services Policy team, and during the presentation, we discussed the recommendations from the report and compared them to our current practice and policy. After the review, our administration met with Chief Clerk and Human Resources to begin working on a risk assessment matrix. We have identified specific measures that we will begin tracking on a regular basis to help identify risk. This proactive approach will help deal with the increase in a planned way. So while we'll be able to have more time, I'll be able to present to you where we are in that risk matrix at different times. So looking at the totality of all this, we've identified the need for more staff. So given the nature of how the needs-based budget works, we're always projecting into the future. So we're projecting 2 years into the future for additional staff for our needs-based staff and services. In order to have a contingency plan, we are asking for 7 additional staff in our needs base. The request for more staff must be written into the needs base, but I'm not requesting for you guys to vote on them today. If you recall, last year I requested 6 staff members, but the state only approved 4 of them. We currently filled those positions and we have 2 left. So in the needs base, I'm requesting a supervisor, 5 caseworkers, and 1 agency solicitor. The new caseworker positions will be 3 for our in-home units who work with the families in the home. 1 will be a placement worker, and 1 is for our on-call. We are continuing to monitor the caseload size, and with that 36.8% increase, we will need to add staff to help balance the work with the families and to continue our good assessment of children's safety. We are also reviewing our on-call system to see if we would benefit from having the second on-call person. When you begin to add more caseworkers, we need to look at the supervisor to caseworker ratio. And as per the state regulation, it's 5 caseworkers to 1 supervisor. So any additional staff would warrant an additional supervisor.
Do they go into that formula regardless of the type of case?
Yes.
So it's always one or flexibility.
This is important for the training and supervision of caseworkers and also the oversight of the increase in cases. The agency solicitor. We currently have 1 full-time agency solicitor and a second attorney on contract. Our full-time agency solicitor handles our cases day-to-day on a regular basis, everything during the day, and provides weekly time to meet with our staff to prepare for court. The contract attorney handles all of our child abuse appeals. When the new laws were implemented, there were 2 areas that impacted the need for more attorney services. We have to have weekly meetings to review any child abuse case that may be indicated. These reviews are required by one of the new laws. The second area is the time frame for appeals have been shortened, so the appeals are moving a lot faster through BHA. This is an increase in the amount of time we are utilizing our contract attorney. In fiscal year 13-14 to 14-15, we've seen a 35% increase in the hours for our contract attorneys. At current hourly rate, it is more cost effective and results in more hours available to create an additional attorney position as opposed to continue to pay our contract rate. Again, as you're aware, the state's approval of these positions does not mean that we will move forward to fill these. We would bring any requested positions before you for approval, and we will need to monitor our data regularly to keep you informed of our needs. So some areas that we are doing very good. We are continuing to do really well with our collaboration. We collaborate with JPO for our shared cases, so any cases that are open with both of our systems. We are working hand in hand with drug and alcohol for a lot of new programs with them, for the need for our families that have substance abuse issues. We are also working with the DA's office in the development of our multidisciplinary investigative team protocol, it's MDIT. We currently have an MDT meeting is what it was called before, but the protocol is putting some more regulations to it to kind of firm it up, and we're working together with that group, the DA's office, victim witness, all the local police department, and our staff. So we'll have that protocol back here soon, and it'll be signed by myself, the Dave Free, and that'll show some really good collaboration between our 2 agencies. We continue to provide a quality visitation program, which has had very good outcomes for our families, and this year have moved into the prison system to offer a visitation there as well. So we're continuing to do very good work for our families and children, and so we'll look forward to keep working through it. Now we have a little bit of the fiscal side to give you an update on.
Of course, this is just estimates, because I'm working on finalizing fourth quarter, but I always provide this now so you aren't totally shocked when we do the presentation in September. The first piece of good news is the first column is fiscal year 14-15. We will not be in overmatch this year. It's exciting to see that. The numbers for the expenses are pretty firm. The revenues, I'm still working on finalizing those, but they should be pretty close to what's on this form. So that's how we build the needs base. You start with your actuals, and then the second column is the year we are currently in, which is our implementation year. In the past, I've only put in what we're certified for, but this year I had to increase it with the compensation plan for the Gallagher study, because if we don't put those numbers in now to show it, they will not build onto in the future years. So our fiscal year 15-16 is going to be a tough year as far as I projected the county share would be, if we spent everything as is in the certified, the county share would be just a little bit higher than it was, but then we would be an overmatch. I'm estimating about 500,000 in overmatch, and that's if we spend everything as certified. And in the past, the state has made us whole with the overmatch. That's not a guarantee from year to year, but we can always hope. And then after the 15-16 year, that will build the 16-17 year
that, we call that the wish list year, as far as if the county, if the state certified us as requested, then the county share would level off. Any questions?
Okay, questions?
I have none, but
I do, real quickly,
Yes.
just very briefly, you've made reference to the Gallup results there. Could you go into a little bit of detail or reiterate that? Because we do have a responsibility of putting that in place to monitor how that, what the end result of that is, what is intent. So if you could expound on it a little bit.
Specifically, the effect it had on our staff.
The effect it has had, the effect you believe it will have.
Okay. Our base salary for our caseworkers was increased, obviously, and they were moved to an exempt status. So when our workers worked into the evening before, they had overtime and stuff like that. So now with the exempt status, they would not have that. So we're working a lot with professional flex and those things. If you look back the past couple of years, we have had significant turnover these past 3 years, continuing to bring staff in, lose staff, and we're hopeful now that we will be paying that kind of salary and, you know, improving that experience that will keep staff longer and build that strength. If you look back many years ago, maybe close to like 5, we had a very strong experienced staff. We missed that piece in our thing. We looked at, right now, our staff average years of experience for our caseworkers is 6 years. But if you look at the mean, it's only 2 years, 10 months. So right now, we currently have 39.4% of our staff have less than 2 years' experience. That's a very young staff. So we're very hopeful that this study and this change will help keep our staff here and happy and will increase that experience level for our families.
Just going forward, it'd be good for us to hear that summarized,
Yeah.
yes, so, you know, so we know that it's working the way that we intended it to work.
Yes.
Glad you brought it up.
And part of the matrix, that is one of the areas that we will continue to look at. We outlined, I believe, there's 8 or 9 areas that we're gonna continue to monitor, and staff retention is one of them.
Any other questions?
that's bothering me.
And father engagement, you know that's on there.
I know that's on there, I know that's on there.
Thank you.
Thanks. A note from the chief clerk, he is still, in the, traffic that, unfortunately, the penalty on, 81 is tying up, a great deal of the borough. He had asked that CNY be moved, but we just completed that. So if he is not, here for, Rebecca, if we can put that back to sort of that last of the, contract and grant, he hasn't come in yet. He's requested that happen.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
For now.
Item number 4, I'd like to call on Solicitor Brennan regarding approval of ordinance 2015-2 regarding imposing a weight restriction on lighting bridge in Cumberland Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an ordinance that was discussed after the last meeting, and you authorized it for advertisement and possible enactment this morning. So I'm asking you to move to approve that ordinance, please.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance for the rate restriction on lighting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There had been, a little further, discussion yesterday during the, finance meeting on, the concern for, agricultural, vehicles. So I'm not sure if any of that has added to or changed any of this, or if you've had a chance to speak with Kirkstone on that.
I was not aware of that discussion,
Okay.
but I don't believe it does. I will check.
All right.
I would ask you to enact the ordinance, and then we'll, if we need to go back and amend it, I'll be glad to do that.
And have any, permitting that may be allowed.
Right. I will check.
That would be in there.
I will.
Okay. Motion and second. Is there any further discussion or comment on the,
This is the earliest that we've had an opportunity to actually enact the ordinance, but the fact that the posting zone occurred.
yes, it has, but
Okay.
we need the ordinance to take place. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Moving on to number 5, contracts and grants. I'm going to call on Deb Michelot to discuss the 2014-15 Senior Center addendums as well as 4 contracts for aging and community services. Deb?
Morning, Commissioners.
We've determined that, in reference to the addendums, we've determined that additional state allocated funds that must be used in the fiscal 2014-15 year be approved for the following amendments. Each center was asked to provide a list of items that would improve either their physical location or the services to their clients. Based on those responses, we ask that you approve these contract amendments. The Big Spring Senior Center, $3,500. That $3,500 would be used to relocate a thermostat, purchase a handheld scanner for the touchscreen system, $500 for a closet organizer, cabinet installation, painting the center, and other miscellaneous items. The Salvation Army's contract amendment will be for $10,000. Those additional funds will be used to install a 3-bowl sink, garbage disposal and countertops, and repair and replace a drain. The Mary Shaner Senior Center, $15,000. Those additional funds will be used to renovate the women's bathroom. Mechanicsburg Place, $17,000. Those additional funds will be used to renovate both bathrooms with new lighting, flooring, partitions, vanity tops, faucets, sinks, and toilets. Branch Creek Place, which is the Shippensburg Center, $17,000. Those additional funds would be used to reface the front of the Senior Center building. And West Shore Senior Center would receive $24,000. That would be for window replacement for the entire Senior Center, automatic door opener and installation to a handicap entrance, and access control system and installation of a slide card system. And that is it for the amendments. In reference to the renewals, V&A contract renewal for $45,000 for their operating costs, and the agreement for in-home care in the options program for Angels on Call. It's a 1% increase from $17.75 to $17.93 an hour. In the agreement with NHS Stevens Center for peer counseling services, and the rates would remain the same as last year. And the last one is a new contract with Virginia Monstead. And Virginia will be the local link coordinator for Dauphin and Perry counties. And Cumberland County will receive the state funds for this purpose and pass the funds on to Virginia.
Deb, what did you say, East Pennsboro Township?
East Pennsboro is $15,000.
Are there any other questions, Commissioner? Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call on Wendy Hovener, who is with us. This is the last day you're away. Yeah. To discuss the 8 agreements for children and youth.
What are you gonna do with your free time?
I'm really gonna enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Our first 3 items on your agenda are simply extensions into the new fiscal year. As usual, our contract process takes quite a while, and we end up extending most of our providers. Then you have Dr. Rocco Manfredi, who does psychiatric evaluations, mostly for JPO, at the detention center. You also have alternative behavior consultants, and there is an increase on this. ABC is a locally developed provider of parenting and visitation services that in the last year or so is developing a statewide and national profile. It's a program that we're very proud of.
They're new and they're in Carlisle.
Pardon?
They're new and they're in Carlisle.
No, they've been in Carlisle for a while. It was a program developed by our agency, and Kim Sweeper, the director there.
Have they always been called ABC?
Yes,
Okay.
they're down on South Hanover.
Okay.
Right. Very good services. They are requesting an increase on certain rates that you see on your listing, they have not had an increase for a number of years. So the increases range from 3% to 5% on their services. Okay, and then Bethany is a residential and also a shelter program, and they are at a 0% increase. And then finally, there are 2 child welfare education for leadership contracts, which is a contract between the county and the University of Pittsburgh, whereby our staff will go to graduate school full-time for 2 years with federal grant paying their tuition and their salary reimbursement to the county. Our benefit obviously is having Nancy Public staff return to its staff.
Okay. I was just, in other words, we're gonna pay essentially for them to receive the master's degree.
Yes, they go full-time for 2 years while still receiving their salaries, but that is fully reimbursed by the grant, and their tuition is reimbursed. When they return to us, they owe the county 2 full years. And we have a number of Seawell graduates, and I am maybe Nicole, a number of Seawell graduates, and our retention rate on those graduates is excellent. So it's a fantastic program.
Thank you, Wendy. We'll miss you.
And
Okay, item number C on the agenda, I'd like to call Pat Thompson to discuss the agreement between CNRC and KCI USA. Pat?
We're looking for approval on a renewal of 1-year contract for service July 1st of this year to June 30th of 2016 on our room rental. There's no increase in the base price of $65.96. There is a scale, it's discounted anywhere from 95% to 75%, depending on the number of rental days. We have no commitment in the contract in terms of the number of rental days. We have minimal use. We need to rent because we do have one in-house, but when we have to rent it, this contract is helpful. And this price is consistent, $65.96 is the base price with the current contract, and that price is good until August 31st of 2017.
Any questions, Commissioner? Thank you, Paul. Next, we'll move on to the Conservation District. Vince McCollum is here to discuss the submission of the Growing Greener Plus grant application to Pennsylvania DEP.
Morning. This application is for the Middle Spring watershed down near Shippensburg, and we submitted the application to DEP, and the amount that we're seeking is just under $63,000. Just over half of that will be reimbursement for staff salaries within the Conservation District, and a small part of that will be for travel and other miscellaneous expenses. Part of it will be for construction of some best management practices down in the watershed to help improve water quality. That will be on a cost share basis to the landowners, where the grant will pay for 80% and the landowners pay for 20%. This grant project is part of what is called a watershed implementation plan that we developed and was approved by EPA several years ago. And this grant application is the second phase of many phases that we will go through to essentially try and get Middle Spring watershed removed from an impaired streams list that DEP does the assessment on. So that's the goal of it, is to improve water quality. There's no cost to the county. We will actually be getting reimbursed $36,000 for staff expenses. So there's any questions?
Landowners involved here, who are you talking about in particular?
I don't have the names with me, but this one we will be looking, hopefully implementing forested riparian buffers on 2 agricultural sites. One is just north of Shippensburg, which is downstream. One is south of Shippensburg, which is upstream. One of them is Fred Dillner's property. I know Fred passed away. I can't think of his wife's name. And the other one on the north side.
These are farms?
Yes, those are current farms where we would be looking to basically plant trees and stabilize stream banks directly along the stream to reduce sediment and nutrient impacts to the stream. Four of the other sites are urban sites within the borough of Shippensburg, where we'd be looking to come in and do some stormwater best management practices, trying to reduce impervious coverage, maybe put in some rain gardens, try and keep that stormwater from running directly into the stream, causing some issues.
Any questions, Commissioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Mike Plastow to discuss the agreement between the Controller's Office and Garcia Garment and Shea. Speaking, Mike.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a contract with Garcia Garment and Shea to ensure the quality of the audits if they come in and look at our work. We were able to achieve savings of 40% on this contract by redefining the scope, but still meeting the technical requirements and also finding another vendor.
Is it a one-year contract?
One-year contract.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we'll move on to Matt Stoner, who will be discussing the South Central Regional Comprehensive Highway Safety Program grant and a request for approval of Resolution 2015-23. Matt?
He's not here. Okay.
Probably stuck in traffic.
He probably is. So for those two, and then Rebecca will be next.
Right.
Let's put those in thought.
Next, we move on to Michelle Seibert. She's going to be discussing the submission of the Stop Violence Against Women grant application to PCCD. Michelle?
Good morning. I am seeking permission to file for the grant. It's a Stop Violence Against Women grant. It's 3 years. Our last grant is going to end December of 2015. The grant is 3 years, but we have to submit the budget every year. So this is for 2016, but the entire grant's through 2018. It's $125,000. It supports victim services, domestic violence services, and the YWCA.
Any questions?
I do have a request. I'm not asking for action today. It is due Monday, August 17th. So we will submit the grant online, but I need the signature page, the 2 pass-through agreements, and there's a certification page. Signed on Monday, and I have to have it in the mail on Monday.
Can you fax it?
No,
You can't fax
I
it.
have to have the original.
Okay.
So it has to be date stamped, yeah, I mean,
Okay, so.
it doesn't have to get to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's too. It'll be voted on, it'll go to the top of the list, you know, as far as the stack, and, we'll get that. And as soon as it's signed, that was my question, can you fax that to them? No, it's gotta go in the mail.
But as long as I can get it
That's
date stamped.
We'll make sure you have it. Thank you.
I'll be knocking on your doors.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we'll move on to drug and alcohol. Brian Simon is going to discuss the agreement between drug and alcohol and farm care. Brian?
Good morning, Commissioners. Currently, we bill Perform Care for intensive case management services provided by some of our case managers. We use a paper form, and the form has been getting caught in their system and been getting kicked back, and there's been delays and things. This agreement would allow us to use their online system to just go into their website, put our information in to bill them directly online, and hopefully eliminate some of the delays and other problems that the paper forms have been creating.
Are there any questions for Brian?
Is there a cost associated with this?
Nope.
No.
Thank you, Brian.
If you-
Next, I'll call on John Locke to discuss the 2 inspection station forms. One is for emissions service enrollment form, and one is for non-ACH payment form. John?
Yes, Commissioners, requesting approval for these 2 forms and signature. These 2 forms are required anytime you make a change in your vehicle inspection station. The changes will allow us to inspect both county and rapid transit or transit vehicles. And the one form is for an emission service enrollment form, and the other one is a non-ACH payment form, which allows us an exemption to electronic payment requested by the controller's office.
And this was the one with all the pictures and all the backup documents and
Right.
all that.
This is to allow us to keep continuing moving forward with the process and move forward.
Will this need to be done every year?
No, anytime there's a change,
Only a
it
change?
needs done, yes.
Okay.
Thanks, John. Next, Mark Adams is going to be discussing the letter of removal for LSAP downgrade. Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is our laser piece licensing, and we've had some changes with document imaging systems throughout the county. We need to reduce our current licenses that we have with Laserfiche. In order to do that, we need a letter signed from you to do that. It will save us about $5,000 a year to reduce that. We just need authorization to do that.
Any questions for Mark? Thanks, Mark. Next, I'd like to call on Sue Carbaugh to discuss the MHID agreements for fiscal year 2015-16 for early intervention, mental health, and intellectual and developmental disabilities. Sue?
Thank you. We have quite a list here.
Yeah.
Let's start with the early intervention ones. They are renewals for fiscal year 15-16. There are a couple waiver contracts in there, but most of them are base contracts. They're for translation services, evaluation services, therapeutic services. They total about $402,063 for the early intervention. For the 15-16 mental health contract there, it is also a renewal for Tim Souquet for on-call delegate services. It is in the amount of $6,700. It's also out of base funding. And for the intellectual and developmental disabilities for 15-16, they are renewals. There was one new one in there for the Farm of Hope for licensed rehabilitation. These are base contracts, services such as supported employment, companion rehabilitation, residential, transportation, behavioral support, all the, I think the transition consultant was also in there. Those contracts total $1,466,938. Any questions?
Thank you, Sue. Next, I'd like to call on Bob Schreiber to discuss the submission of an emergency management performance grant application to FEMA and Tower Services Unlimited contract. Bob?
Okay, requesting your review and execution of the 2015 federal fiscal year emergency management performance grant. We've been awarded $79,940, which goes to offset a portion of my salary as well as the emergency operations manager through our emergency management. As you remember, the certification exercise allows us to move from 25% of mine to 50. So that's a portion of that. It does have a match, but that is covered through our normal salary, so no additional extra match. And that runs, performance period is October 1st of 2014 through September of 2015. They always, it's a reimbursable, so it kind of falls behind a year. And the second item is Tower Services Unlimited. It's a service contract to have them remove antennas from our prison tower. There's low band antennas that we used to use on the old mutual aid low band frequencies that are basically becoming non-usable or obsolete with the other counties transitioning to various other radio systems. So all of our interoperability patching now, most of that is being done from the 911 center radio consoles across the microwave to the other counties with the task force microwave. So they're really not needed, and we want to get that extra weight off the tower. The total price was $4,080, which the $80 makes it a full-blown contract.
Any
Questions?
discussion of the right to request off the table?
So moved.
Second. Which we don't need one to take it off.
Yes.
We do need.
You do need one.
Okay.
Take it off.
Is there a second to take it off the table?
I'm not sure I understand what's going on.
I made the motion, I thought, to take it off the table.
Right, and my question was, do we immediately need a second to take it
Yes, you
off
do.
the table? Or
Yes,
do
you
we
do.
need a second to take it off the
To
table?
take it off the table,
Yes.
meaning it will be discussed today?
Yes, it will.
It will be discussed.
It is tabled right now.
Right, okay, so this is
It needs
reversing the
to-
tabling
Right.
from last meeting, okay, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion to bring it back on? All those in favor? Any opposed? Is there a motion for the transition to the right to know request from the Commissioner's office to the Solicitor's office?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the transition? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to make the motion for the appointment of Roxanne Lehman as a paralegal from the Solicitor's Office as the open records officer for Cumberland County. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this appointment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
very much. We'll give Larry a few more minutes. Rebecca, if you can stay, I'll start on the liaison, couple things. Certainly for children and youth, we just heard the significant challenges that are gonna be facing the county and the numbers and projections for the needs-based budget. Some good news though is too, we've got a program that is being offered by the Methodist Home. It's a 3-day training in September for those that wish to become facilitators for the Strengthening Families Program. They are asking that you call into the home for additional information. This will be held the 16th through the 18th of September, and it is certainly a worthwhile program that adds to and supplements the county's effort for children and families. And again, what you heard today, the need that's going to be coming our way, not just financially, but through additional services. Drug and alcohol, this time Gary Human Services will be holding 2 events on September the 15th. One is a day-long training workshop, and the second is an evening forum on opiate epidemics that are facing both counties. There's no charge to attend, however, registration for the training session is requested, but certainly not to attend the evening forum. I hope the turnout for that evening forum is as strong as it was for the Shippensburg event. We do have good news from Pennsylvania. They came in second for the National Conservation Environment. Texas was number 1, but we certainly had a good showing for the team that represented the state. Conservation is also working on an MOU that will be coming before this board probably by mid-September. And from Ag Extension, I can tell you that the 4-H sale of animals last week, 184 animals were sold, and approximately $200,000 was raised that night. So opening your wallet helps. That's all I have. We just started for the liaison, so we can maybe move through those, and then Rebecca is here for her presentation.
Yeah, she did pretty well without you.
I mean,
Welcome to Carlisle.
Thank God for the road diet or whatever it's called.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Mr. Hartsock?
Thank you. As you're aware, I attended the annual meeting of the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh, and in addition to having the honor of accepting the award that our county received for the top website, Pennsylvania's first through 3rd-class counties, I did attend a number of meetings, and there were a number of topics of both interest and I believe importance. On Sunday morning, August the 2nd, as the board of directors met, among other topics, we received an update on the state budget negotiations, or more precisely, the lack thereof. But more precisely, the very troublesome aspect of the borrow from Peter to pay Paul budget that the General Assembly passed, which was vetoed as insufficient by the governor. A budget that would appear to decrease funding for county child welfare agencies through a process referred to as rebalancing. As pointed out by the CCAP staff, the funding assumptions used to shift dollars for child welfare lines in House Bill 1192, which was vetoed by the governor, and now in House Bill 1460, as introduced as a new budget bill by House Appropriations Chairman William Madoff, are inaccurate. The needs-based child welfare budgeting law enacted by the General Assembly's Act 30 several decades ago requires that county child welfare allocations be appropriated based on projected needs requested in their needs-based plans and budgets. Reducing the fund below what counties have requested based on an assumption that funds will not be needed runs counter to the law as well as to historical practice. Also, payments for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2014-2015, something in the neighborhood statewide of $170 million would be deferred to the 2015-16 budget to create the illusion of fund availability to spend elsewhere. These assumptions and illusions, as clearly underscored by the CCAP staff analysis, will create huge cash flow problems for counties because counties may not receive, on a timely basis, the fourth quarter payments for the prior fiscal year. What's more, as we pointed out in our correspondence to our county's lawmakers, mandates on counties have dramatically increased as a result of the recent changes to the Child Protective Services law, and there has been a major increase in workload and call volumes, as we heard just this morning again from Nicole. The fact is, counties cannot continue to meet the mandates with reduced funding or budgeting shell games, and at the very least, the so-called budget rebalancing is not something that should occur at a time when we're trying to deal with the very real consequences of the impact of the new child welfare mandates. On some other matters advanced at the conference for adoption by the membership was a resolution jointly crafted by the Agriculture Committee chaired by Commissioner Dennis Stuckey of Lancaster County and the Assessment and Taxation Committee that I chair that calls for reform of Pennsylvania's clean and green law to ensure that the law is aimed at meeting its original intent, that is allowing for a preferential tax assessment for properties that are truly agricultural use, agricultural reserve, or forest reserve. A key element of the resolution proposes that the General Assembly change the size of the requirement of an eligible property from 10 to 25 acres and income eligibility for agricultural use from a minimum of $2,000 to a minimum of $10,000. The resolution calls for grandfathering those properties that are currently enrolled in clean and green and under the current eligibility requirements, unless and until the use changes, the property is subdivided, or the property is transferred to someone other than a family member. Another new resolution advanced by the Assessment and Taxation Committee would signal CCAP's opposition to any proposed constitutional amendment or legislative initiative that would weaken the current judicial or legislative standards for what constitutes an institution of purely public charity for tax exemption purposes. The resolution is in reaction to Senate Bill 4, which is a proposed constitutional amendment that would grant the state legislature's sole authority to determine the constitutional definition of what constitutes an institution of purely public charity. Senate Bill 4 is one state house vote away from winning second session legislative approval before being placed before the voters for a final decision. CCAP's new resolution seeks to guard against any action that would make the charitable property tax exemption more broadly available or easier to attain, and asserts that the association supports efforts to ensure that institutions eligible for real estate tax exemption continuously meet all of the eligibility requirements as established by the courts and the General Assembly. The resolution also supports legislation granting counties clear authority to negotiate payments in lieu of taxes from tax-exempt property owners. These proposed resolutions and a number of others are now subject to electronic voting by all of the county commissioners across Pennsylvania, the CCAP membership, until August the 21st tonight. If my colleagues haven't already done so, I would certainly ask them to exercise their individual votes within the designated timeframe.
Who did this?
Among the breakout sessions I attended was one dealing with the rail transportation of Bakken crude oil. Speakers included Randy Gockley, the director of the Lancaster County Emergency Management Agency, Tim Solabay, our state's fire marshal, and Marty Neville from PEMA. There was a significant discussion about how emergency training with respect to dealing with potential accidents from the increasing incidence of rail shipments of Bakken crude, how that training has been beefed up. There was also discussion about how there's been a heightened level of cooperation and collaboration, something I was happy to hear, with Norfolk Southern and CSX regarding these shipments. Lancaster County's Emergency Management Director also discussed his county's approval of an emergency response plan that deals exclusively with crude oil transportation through Lancaster County, and I understand the plan has been shared with Bob Shively, and I look forward to getting an update on where we are in the process of considering approval of a similar plan at the next meeting of our county's local emergency planning commission. Stephanie Singer, let me just say, coming to a state near you very shortly, is online voter registration. Stephanie Singer, the chair of the Elections Reform Committee at CCAP, announced that online voter registration will soon be implemented. And I understand from our county's own election director that we will soon have a link on our county website for this state-initiated online voter registration initiative in the near future as well. At the closing CCAP session, meanwhile, we received an update from PEMA. PEMA Director Rick Flynn on the implementation of the new 911 fee legislation, the first change in this law in a generation. Payments will be going out to counties using an interim formula on September the 30th. Traditional funding will remain in place through the end of this year, while the 911 board that oversees this new law is established. The good news for counties is that reimbursements will be based on broader cost categories, and the new program is supposed to provide greater flexibility for financing the expenses of our 911 public safety departments in Cumberland counties throughout the state of Pennsylvania. On Monday morning, I joined Commissioner Cross, several members of the Carlisle Borough Council, and Senator Vance for a tour and update of the mission of Carlisle's YMCA on Southwest Street. I understand that they have some projects that are going to be coming up and announced in the near future. Yesterday morning, I attended the meeting of the Agricultural Land Preservation Board. There was a briefing on Sunoco Pipeline Limited's notice of intent to obtain an erosion and sediment control permit from DEP for its plans to construct and expand its pipeline system through Cumberland County, consisting of two parallel pipelines within a 50-foot right-of-way, all the way from Washington and Westmoreland counties in western Pennsylvania through the state and Cumberland County to Marcus Hook in Delaware County in eastern Pennsylvania. The pipelines are expected, once complete, to transport up to 350,000 barrels of natural gas liquid and will traverse through 9 townships of Cumberland County, those townships being Upper and Lower Frankfort, Lower Mifflin, Middlesex, Monroe, North Middleton, Silver Spring, and Upper and Lower Allen townships. As approved by our Farmland Preservation Board, comments have been submitted to DEP from our program administrator, Stephanie Williams, noting that based on the mapping provided by Sunoco, it appears that at least 3 preserved farms are in the path of the proposed pipeline project. In particular, the letter from Stephanie to DEP points out that while Pennsylvania's Farmland Preservation Program permits the granting of right-of-way for the installation of such pipelines, the federal Farmland Preservation Program specifically prohibits the landowner from voluntarily granting a right-of-way for a gas pipeline. There is at least one of the preserved farms affected that is in the path of the pipeline project, one of the farms preserved by the federal program. How exactly that gets resolved at this point is not at all clear. The letter from Stephanie to DEP also notes the county's interest in ensuring that various other items in terms of the preserved farmland deed of easements are upheld, including such things as ensuring that minimum agricultural production requirements are maintained, that construction is carried out in a way that disruption to agricultural activities is kept to a bare minimum, best management practices are utilized to minimize soil erosion and water quality impacts, and that excavation and restoration of soils are managed to ensure that topsoil is returned to its original topography. Another action at the meeting, the board moved forward with making offers under the 2015 program to 6 of the top ranked farms from the list of applicants. And once these farms, totaling about 550 acres, are preserved, this would bring the number of farmland acres preserved in Cumberland County to over 17,000 acres since the inception of the program a little over a quarter century ago. And as Dave Schwartz, the head of the Agricultural Extension Office, commented at the meeting, the importance of our farmland preservation program is all the more critical now as our county continues to witness significant growth in both population and the pressures of development. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority boards meet tomorrow, and I plan to be in attendance, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
We did receive replies back from Senator Vance and from Representative Coleman on the letter that we sent forward from this board. I think everyone received those. And unless he has stepped aside, Bob Thomas was co-chair of the elections committee. That election reform committee was established at CCAP in a bipartisan manner. Stephanie Singer was representing the Democrats, and Bob Thomas was representing the Republicans. So what percolates up from that is sort of routinely perceived as a bipartisan
Absolutely.
effort. So I just mentioned Bob's name because I don't believe he's still co-chair that.
No, I think you're right, and you know, again, Stephanie was the one who brought it up at the board meeting, and that's the only reason I mentioned it. No, Bob was the chair of that committee as well, and co-chair of that committee, so. But it is an interesting development because of the reform of our election laws in Pennsylvania seems to be something that more often than not gets left on the back burner. At least, you know, people have an opportunity now, you know, if they haven't filled out the paper form, they'll be able to go online and register to vote. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, commissioners? Commissioner Arnold?
Just briefly, for Susan and whatever the MHID, emphasis right there is on the contracts. That's where the action's been laid on that. Most of my board contacts are meeting, the meetings are pending. Friday's meeting, next Monday is library. The EDC board meets on Tuesday, planning commission meets on Thursday. Friday, CCAP Management Academy meeting is a teleconference meeting. One thing I do have, planning, Kirk has nothing additional for us. Most of his issues have come to us pretty timely manner, so we've dealt with most of those or they're on the table for discussion already. receive an update from Justin Miller regarding recycling and waste authority. Just a couple items there to pass along as reminders. The draft revision to the waste management plan is completed, and I believe it's provided in the solicitor's office now. There was public comment from Northern Township, a couple of comments from some of the board members at the last board meeting. Very minimal revisions to that, but we are required periodically to provide that revised waste management plan to Cumberland. So that's in operation. Just double check here. No major changes, good feedback, minor text changes, draft copy was provided to the solicitor for feedback. That will most likely come to us on the next workshop agenda, so about 2 weeks from now, Justin will need to talk to us about the final approval process on that. Just a reminder, household hazardous waste drop-offs next Saturday at the Allen Road building, and that's from 9 to 3. And let's see, we have the previously discussed electronics recycling issue. The agreements are in the solicitor's office for approval on that, so we'll need to hear about that. I think that's all I have.
Just wondering, library, as a result of the facilitated discussion between the county and our library system, the end product of that was supposed to be a memorandum of understanding. Has been preliminary copies have been drafted, currently being reviewed by the solicitor, our solicitor, Mr. Brown, and the library CCLS's solicitor, who happens to be Ted. Yep. So they're working out some final details on languages, and then that will be presented to both library board and board of commissioners for further review and discussion.
Conflict of interest there?
Oh, yeah. Clearly there is, but it's one of those situations where if both you as the commissioners and the library system board approve of it, until an issue comes up or it has to be resolved by separate counsel, it's acceptable. And frankly, I'm not sure, based on the MOU that I reviewed, what issues there may be. It's like most MOUs, it's an understanding as opposed to a contractual obligation. And there's language in there for that effect.
So more on that tomorrow. Any comments or questions for Commissioner Apfelberger? Thank you. Moving on to Rebecca.
Good morning. I have board rights here with me and Harry from adult probation, because the training that we're gonna be talking about actually is directly for their staff. It would be for the treatment staff at the prison and the adult probation officers. I know that the commissioners are well aware of what risk needs assessment means in criminal justice, because of the transformation we've seen in the juvenile probation office. We've seen their risk reduction levels, we've seen recidivism reduction beginning to show itself, and we've also seen placement costs go down since they had implemented the YLS several years ago. And that was the first step that they took in really implementing evidence-based practices. They're now moving into cognitive behavioral therapies, monitoring recidivism, monitoring the effectiveness of the different types of community services that we're using in probation. And now the adult system is really ready to launch ourselves in the same way. Unfortunately, on the adult side, we don't have the same kind of support that the juvenile system did through JCJC and PCCD. The adult probation offices are really on their own looking to what they want to do. Through the steering committee, we formed a work group about 9 months ago to select a risk needs tool that would fit for us here. We looked at 4 or 5 to start, and then narrowed it down to the best 3 that we could. We conducted webinars with the companies, we made a matrix of the pros and cons of each, and eventually we settled on the ORADS. It's the Ohio Risk Assessment Tool. It was developed by the University of Cincinnati, and it's used all across the state of Ohio. I think there is one other state that's now using it. And there are 4 other counties that over the last year and a half in Pennsylvania have been trained, Berks, Lebanon, York, and Dolphin. The nice thing about it is it's the first risk needs assessment that has 7 modules. 2 of them would not be relevant for us because they deal with prison reentry, state prison reentry. But the other 5 are unique in that there is a bail release tool, a shorter version that helps MDJs make bail decisions. So it could help us reduce our prison population by identifying low to moderate risk offenders that could be released with no supervision or perhaps minimal supervision.
Rebecca,
Yeah.
just for the record, there's a wide variety and variance in bails that are
There can be,
assigned by the
there can be,
MDJs
yes.
for the same crime, same profile. Bails are all over the place.
There is that, and there's also the steering committee's been looking at recent studies from the Arnold Foundation, the Carter Foundation, showing that really 1 to 3 days in jail can drastically increase recidivism for a person. Just that small amount of time for a low-level offender can be so disruptive to their livelihood that they're, more likely to recidivate if they had just been released. There's also other studies on type of bond, that the risk of someone fleeing or not appearing does not increase between ROR and unsecured versus secured bond.
Are these divided in, by gender? Is there sort of one set for women offenders and
Well-
one set looking at men? And are they by age?
The release tools tend to, what the studies show is that there doesn't seem to be an impact between the 2 genders, so the tool can be used.
Criminals
for
are
both.
criminals. Kind of.
Well,
What we're talking about.
the risk factors remain the same for appearing, because when you're talking about bail decisions, you're not talking about the risk of reoffending in the long term. You're talking about the risk of not appearing in the short term, so different risk factors. So the tool's much smaller and easier to administer.
But we're talking about non-violent offenders.
Yes, low and moderate risk.
I think if you look at the county strategy for years, it's been to try and keep our prison population as low as possible while ensuring the safety of the community by looking at the possibility of risk assessment to identify low risk defendants and find alternative ways for them to serve their responsibilities under this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a unique feature of the ORAS that we get this pre-release tool. The main reason we really started looking at risk needs though is for the long-term impact on recidivism. Because a lot of what we've done to control the prison population has sort of been on the front end. Some of our programs have been successful, like the DUIP program in reducing recidivism for multiple offenders, but, for the broader population of non-DUI offenders, we really need to start looking at this risk needs tool, cognitive behavioral therapies, just focusing our resources on those moderate to higher risk offenders. In York County, since they've implemented the ORAS, they've seen a 40% reduction in their regular supervision caseload, which means that they were giving attention to low-risk offenders who really didn't need it, and the studies show that by giving them that attention, it increases their risk of recidivism. Really, if they just left alone, they're not as likely to recidivate. So that was something we were really interested in, knowing that, our neighboring county has put this into place over the last year and has seen that impact already.
Does Dolphin have any results too? Or is it too early?
I know that Darby has been talking with Chad today over there quite a bit. Some of our conversations with them, I was going to get to when I talk about the long-term hope of the ORAS using the web-based system. We've had some conference calls recently to talk about maybe a regional effort with the 5 counties to tie into UCM. We originally reached out to the University of Cincinnati and had some initial conference calls at that time with their IT department, Kathy Steele here, to talk about what it would take to maybe create a link with their web-based system to UCM. They were really excited about it at the University of Cincinnati and wanted to reach out to CCAP because they know that there were these other counties to see if maybe on a statewide level CCAP would be willing to support that. So we're just starting to explore that. We had a conference call with the 5 counties, and they're going to conduct a webinar for us, I think, by the end of this month to show us what they think they can do based on things they had started working on for Dolphin already. So that, because Dolphin is using their web-based system, they've already integrated a lot of like the PA code and everything into it. So we're gonna take a look at that and keep those conversations going. Their paper version is free, which is was also a plus because of the other tools that we looked at, you're paying $1 or more for each test, even for the paper version. Their web-based versions are much more expensive than the ORAS as well. We're hoping that because of the interest that with the 5 counties so far, and perhaps it's spreading, that CCAP may be willing, because I think it's in their long-term plan to put some money toward it, or if the 5 counties can come together, we may be able to do a regional grant from PCCD to help us get it started. But we wouldn't be prohibited from using it right away because we can start with the paper version, although it's not ideal because it's a little slower, but we can get going without the web-based version.
Does the web-based version do its own scoring and tabulation and display of results?
It is. I mean, it's much easier. You know, it would be faster for people to use. The UCM piece of it, though, that would be great would be that it could put the information right into the system on the offender and even, you know, reduce that data entry.
Rebecca, just if people don't know what UCM is.
Oh, the Unified Case Management that we have in probation. We're looking at it, the DA and Public Defender's Office right now, I think.
You got it.
Yeah. So the offender must participate in this?
Yes.
Or
So-
has a voluntary option to participate in this?
As far as probation goes, when they are introduced to the probation officer, that would be part of the initial intake that the probation officer does for the next step, which would be
So
the
that would
just
just be
training.
sort of routine.
Correct. Just, we have to go over conditions of probation and parole, the risks and needs would be done at that time.
Would be done at that time.
It's mandatory.
So it's mandatory. So you don't have an option to say, I'm not giving you this information, I'm not participating in this, or whatever.
The jail piece should be done as part of the classification process.
Okay.
And a lot of the information is, can be taken from official records. There are minimal interview questions, especially in the jail piece of it. The training, does cost $7,000, and that will take place over 2 days. It trains 30 staff. That's the total cost for their travel, hotel. They supply all of the training booklets that each person would receive and retain. That gives us 6 months post-training to call with any questions. You know, while we run into this situation, are we scoring it correctly? And also the participants receive training certification.
And that is renewed, that is upgraded, that is sort of as processes and whatever change, do you need to be retrained in that?
I don't think that would be, I mean, we would probably want to look into the future a train the trainer scenario where, and that's something that we may be able to do collectively with these other 5 counties.
Are you trained once?
Yeah,
and
so that as new
a little bit-
staff comes on,
Right.
we wouldn't have to bring in.
Or new practices is
them.
what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I mean,
Whatever.
the science doesn't change much. I mean, the University of Cincinnati may choose to create a new model. I know right now they're working on a DUI-specific model.
Okay.
And that may be a question that, they're not going to start charging for that.
Okay.
Obviously, but, you know, whether as a new module comes out, we would want to take advantage
I mean, is the investment once and done, or do you see this as sort of a reoccurring
I don't
spend?
see us needing to do the $7,000 30-person training on a regular basis.
Who are the 30 people being trained?
The treatment staff, which would be 4 to 5 of your staff, and then the other 25 or 26 would be the probation officers.
Okay, so here's what I would like to see. I would like to see a presentation by the 30 representatives of the 30 people who were trained at this session to the Board of Commissioners upon completion, like what we learned and all that stuff. And my main interest in this is we're getting to that time of year, everybody's favorite time of year, where we start looking at our performance goals for 2016. This is not a huge investment, it's long awaited, it's much needed, but I also think that we need, because a lot of people have told me that, oh, we've been doing risk assessment for a long time, and not all of it has been very scientific, which is, I think, why we're doing this. But I would like to work this into the department performance goals for both prison and for adult probation, and possibly your area as well.
Well, I think that they are already, that the implementation of the risk needs assessment, I know is on mine. I had thought that it was on Darby's.
It's there as like, let's decide what we're gonna do. Now that we're actually gonna implement it, I think we should start setting some realistic goals for what the difference it's gonna make. And how, you know, I'm not expecting there to be a 25% drop in recidivism after first year of implementation. But I do think that we need to track progress to make sure, A, that the implementation is followed through, and to see what difference it actually has.
I know from having, worked with Darby on this, that, having come from the juvenile probation department where they have been through this, and he knows, how they've implemented it, how they've tracked it, that he intends
All
for the same.
favorable factors, but, in God we trust, everybody else shows me the data.
Well, and it goes back to the outputs as opposed to the outcomes.
Exactly.
So I think that's.
Where's this training being held again?
It's gonna be held in the, training room in the basement of the prison.
That's a perky place to do the training, I must say. Yeah.
So I guess it is, and it's over at, how
2 days.
2
We
days.
have them scheduled for October 8th and 9th to hold us in place.
So people would be, I'm saying, you didn't mention there were hotel, people are gonna be going home, right?
Well, that's what I didn't
No,
understand.
no, the trainers coming from the University of Cincinnati, it's their travel expenses, their
traffic jams.
So it's their
No, I was
flight,
thinking the same
hotel,
thing.
all that.
Okay, we send the 30 people where?
No.
No, I mean, that's what, no, seriously, that's what I thought too.
They are coming to us, those are their expenses.
So I would think this, again, this is something that's worked with juvie, it's way overdue, the adult population, it's great that we're at that point. I would definitely like to hear from the people, representative group, of the people who train, how they felt their time, and then let's look into 2016 for performance goals. But I think this has been a long time coming. I know there's been very, very thorough research on this, and I think, from everything that I've heard, this is a good tool. It's worth the investment.
Any other questions for us?
Thank you. Sorry to have to wait.
I'll see you in 5 minutes.
Yes.
Moving on to item number 8, I'd like to report an executive session held August 12th, 2015 at 6:30 a.m. regarding personnel issues. Number 9, request an executive session regarding personnel issues. Is there any other business?